Oh, we're all friends here. Oh, we're all friends here. Don't want to annoy Ed.
Battle lines were drawn on GB News as host Patrick Christys launched a blistering attack on Labour's entire cabinet for systematically boycotting Britain's #1 news channel. What started as coverage of the government's migrant deal with France quickly transformed into an explosive exposé of political cowardice. Christys methodically dismantled Labour's excuses while revealing that ministers including David Lammy, Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband refused to face tough questions from GB News viewers. Then came the hammer blow that left everyone speechless. GB News had officially overtaken the BBC News app in downloads, proving Labour's strategy is backfiring spectacularly. Watch the clip.
But before that, did you know that over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed? We get it. Life's busy. But subscribing is free and helps us keep making the content you love. Hit that button. It takes a second and means the world to us. Thank you for your support.
Mail Online, Politics UK, a prominent social media site, but she completely ignored GB News. The Home Secretary refused to speak to the country's #1 news channel about the #1 issue facing the country. Now, I can't imagine why. I mean, it's not like she isn't already making a fool of herself on other outlets.
What number do you think a successful scheme would have?
Well, part of what we're doing here is trialling the concept. So we're not setting out the numbers, and there's some specific reasons for that. The reasons for not setting out the numbers is, firstly, the numbers will vary.
Where would you like that number to be, say, in a year's time?
Well, look, nobody should be making those boat crossings at all because they undermine border security, they put lives at risk. Of course, we want those numbers to come down. We want them to come down as swiftly as possible.
How far down?
And, well, I actually don't want to see anybody making those crossings.
Taking place in August.
So, again, we need to work those processes through, but we want to see the returns themselves take place as swiftly as possible.
You can't
bear in mind, people will be detained until they are returned, so
but
they
you're
will
unable
remain
to say
in
August,
detention. Well, as I said, we want this to be in a matter of weeks. Some of those cases we hope will be able to take place very quickly.
Home Office to set aside £100 million of extra funding to support the pilot of the one-in, one-out agreement between the UK and France. I'll ask you about both the pilot and then appeals.
The Home Office told us yesterday it was today, but I believe on another broadcaster you said it was actually tomorrow. Can we just clarify that quickly, first of all?
Oh, we're all friends here. Oh, we're all friends here. Don't want to annoy Ed. Labour aren't including GB News in the morning round tomorrow either. Lisa Nandy's doing that. And what I thought we'd do here now then, whilst we're at it, is just show you a little list of high-profile Labour cabinet ministers who seemingly refuse to talk to the country's #1 news channel. They are David Lammy, Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Jess Phillips. So, if you add those to the others that we've just mentioned there, we've got the Home Secretary, the Minister in charge of Borders and Asylum, the Foreign Secretary, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Energy and Net Zero Secretary, and the Under-Secretary of State for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls, and the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, who apparently do not want to talk to GB News. But it's not really about GB News, is it? It's actually about you. It's about our viewers and our listeners. At times, in the last month, we've had more viewers and listeners than Sky News and BBC News combined. What does it say about this Labour government that they don't think you are worth their time? They aren't bothered about you. And they wonder why they're getting hammered in the opinion polls. I wonder why Yvette Cooper didn't want to talk to us today. Could it be that we'd systematically pick apart her bogus deal with the French? I mean, there's been a few tweets that have come out about this, people who've picked through this deal. So here's some of the detail, right? So the deal has no numbers in it. So could it be that we'll actually be sending back fewer than 50 a week? And this is the key one for me. France has no obligation to tell us any information about who they're sending us in return. So we don't know who they are. It's mad. We have a ridiculous non-deal with the French that could lead to us taking more illegal immigrants than we have now. A Home Secretary who can't be bothered to sell the deal to the viewers and listeners of Britain's #1 news channel. and a cabinet full of top ministers who don't want to talk to you either. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Joining us this evening, we have political commentator and broadcaster and columnist Esther Krakow, GB News superstar Alex Armstrong, and journalist Jonathan Liss. Well, Alex, I'll come to you first on this again. What do you make of this, first of all, the fact that there's a whole host of very prominent Labour cabinet ministers there who don't want to come on? You know, this illegal immigration stuff is the most important issue facing the country. GB News has been leading the charge on it. She's the woman in charge of it, and she won't talk to us.
Yeah, they're running scared of GB News, aren't they? It's that simple, Patrick. They know this is the only news channel. They're going to get tough questions. You just showed all those videos there of the Home Secretary getting softball questions by her husband's mate. Frankly, one of the interviews, bonkers stuff. It wouldn't be acceptable if that happened here at GB News. We'd be splashed all over the left-wing media the next day saying how GB News biased this, GB News biased that. But the reality is they're scared. They're going to get a hard time here, and we're going to ask them the difficult questions the people of this country want.
I just think it's so arrogant. I mean, they normally tell us, oh, sorry, we didn't have time. Oh, it's an operational thing. We got all the time in the world for absolutely everybody else. And I think, in fact, Cooper did several BBC outlets today and, all the time in the world for the broadcaster that employs her husband, which is remarkable, isn't it? But I think our viewers and listeners are probably going to feel quite offended by that.
Well, it's insulting. I mean, that video that you showed that Keir Starmer put on his Instagram, social media, which looks like Pimp My Ride Channel Edition of having these swanky boats going to pick them up.
Don't forget the music in the background.
It's like, honestly, it's like we're being punked. The country is being insulted. It's one thing to sit in opposition for 14 years and to deride the Tories, who did a terrible job, mind you, and say, oh, we're going to be the adults in the room and smash the gangs, which I'm starting to think he didn't mean what we would all think he would mean when he says smash the gangs. Anyway, and now we're a year into this government. Boat crossings are 50% higher than they were last year when he was lampooning Rishi Sunak over this. And then you're showing this sort of Pimp My Ride video saying we're going to tackle this crisis. We don't know how many migrants we're sending back. It's not going to cut the numbers. And the French are literally laughing.
But look, this is why Labour are tanking, Jonathan. I mean, if I just look at this now, so I've got the exact terminology here. More people watched GB News than BBC News Channel and Sky News. On average. That's the metric, according to industry figures. And Labour, a whole raft of Labour cabinet ministers there, from the Foreign Secretary to the person in charge of digital, culture, media and sport, whatever that department is, cannot be bothered to come on and talk to our viewers and listeners.
Well, look, I think that you've listed a few ministers that suggest that the vast majority of Labour ministers are, in fact, coming on GB News.
There shouldn't be one that's...
And I think that there was an example a couple of months ago where Keir Starmer only invited GB News on his trip to Albania, where he was hoping to sort of act tough on migration. So I don't think that GB News can say that it's a total pariah in all cases. I personally, as a left-wing person who comes on GB News regularly, I think it's important to speak to people who don't necessarily agree with me, and boy, do I do that. And I think that, ministers... I don't think there should be an obligation to, but I think it would be helpful.
I think it should be an obligation. You know what's happening? The 23-year-old special advisors, who at 23 you should be not advising on anything really, are sitting in a room and gathering together their media schedule and saying, oh, you probably shouldn't go on GB News, and the ministers are probably agreeing. Well, it's a tactic. Well, look, they're not doing it by accident.
It's a ridiculous... This, especially today of all days, you're announcing this huge flagship policy, as they would call it, with... the French about smashing the gangs and stopping the boats. It's the number one issue facing the country for many people at the moment. We are the number one channel, not just literally, but also on this issue. Yeah. And to not come on and talk about it, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. And it makes you wonder what they're actually hiding. And go on, Alice, you're going to...
Well, no, I was going to say, on top of that, because of the work that you have done, I mean, I was here when you were in Calais, fantastic journalism, praise from front-bench politicians across the spectrum, except for Labour, I hasten to add. That should be a sign for them to go, do you know what, if we want to win back some of those polls, we should do it. But what I did notice today, of course, the BBC decided to run a story, didn't they, Patrick?
Yes,
First time they've ever decided to go after the human traffickers who are smuggling economic migrants into this country, and it's taken them that long. And then guess what? Yvette Cooper shows up on the BBC. I think that's really spitting in the face of people who care about the issues facing this country.
I can't just call them economic migrants.
I don't want to get lost on that point, but yes.
All right, fine. Look, I just want to talk about because okay, so I thought thought it was interesting for our viewers and listeners to know the exact level of resistance. We are constantly told that Labour ministers don't have time, it's an operational thing. And on that issue today, on this issue of the returns agreement with France, they could not put up the Home Secretary, which is astonishing given that she had time to do, as far as I could tell, pretty much everyone else, including a few outlets that just do online stuff on Twitter. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the actual deal with the French. And it looks as though we've not got any numbers in it, so we don't know how many we're going to be returning back. And the French have no obligation to tell us who they're sending in return.
Or, more importantly, the backgrounds of the people they're sending in return. So the only requirement is that they have some sort of connection to England. What if they're linked to, like, terrorists or gangs or, like, you know, are sexual offenders, which we don't seem to be seeing a shortage of those kinds of stories in the media lately.
Every day.
So what, I mean, just logically, what incentive do the French have to send us their best?
Yeah.
They're not...
Well, I don't... presumably the French aren't going to go out of their way to sort of abuse the...
Why wouldn't they want to get rid of them? Sorry, hang on a minute. Why wouldn't they want to? Why on earth would the French not want to get rid of people that they know are wrongers? If they are that good, the French should keep them, wouldn't they? We've not managed to negotiate.
Deliberately send a terrorist to the United Kingdom.
Oh, so they'd keep them in their country to commit terrorist attacks.
Literally overtaken the BBC News app on Apple downloads, which puts us in the top 5. So there you go. If you haven't already downloaded the GBN app, step into it. Get involved.
Number 4.
Look at that. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. The Neighbour Next Door Network, Substack, X, and Reddit. They're the top 4.
I can't believe that X is
Look
still
at that.
Twitter's still number 2. That's amazing.
We are now above BBC News on the app. So,
do you think any Labour ministers are going to download the app, Patrick? I highly doubt it.
Well, maybe they should.
Yeah.
Maybe they should, so they can see themselves not on GB News at some point in the future. Right, a lot more...